Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The Rangers lose a tough one in overtime, 3-2 against the Colorado Avalanche, where Colorado ties it up with 1:13 left in the third period, and then they win it in overtime with not much left time there either. 37 seconds left in overtime, where Devon Toews wins it after Artturi Lehkonen tied it up in the third. So Rangers played a pretty solid game and very well could have had the 2 points. It is a rare situation where the Rangers do not win a game when leading after 2. I've talked about that. Now that is one regulation loss to Carolina and one overtime loss to Colorado. Avalanche didn't really play all that well. Rangers had opportunities to win this game, plenty of them. And it's another game where the Rangers get massive production out of their fourth line. Sam Carrick does it again. He gets a short-handed goal and an assist on an Adam Edstrom goal. So Adam Edstrom was very close to again having a game-winning goal. This one would have been in the second period. But some things that stand out on the negative side as to why they didn't win this game. Igor Shesterkin, the goals that he allowed were not great. Especially the Devon Toews overtime goal, but the third period, the tying goal by Lehkonen, not great either, where there's defensive miscues that certainly are taking place, but it's a shot by Rantanen that should have been stopped cleanly and not been any type of rebound chance, and it was. So Igor, not a great night for him. And just things here and there. Missed opportunities for the Rangers. I mean, Mackenzie Blackwood flat out was better than Igor. Not to say that it was a barrage of crazy like ozone chances for the Rangers, but there were, in the first period, some breakaway type opportunities. Edstrom actually having one of them in the first period. There was another chance by Will Cooley in the first period. There was another chance by Filipino that then led to Colorado's first goal. A lot of back and forth action at that point. Rangers in overtime had a 4-on-3. Penalty was taken by the Avalanche, and the Rangers don't score on it. And we'll talk about some questions that I have personnel-wise for that 4-on-3. Not that there's an exact answer, but certainly questioning is fair. And then Mika Zibanejad has a chance to score a big goal, had a breakaway opportunity in overtime, doesn't score, and that he was a big reason for why Colorado did score. So definitely a lot to discuss. The Rangers, they're 20-20-3. They've gotten points in I believe 5 straight games at this point and 6 of the last 7. So they're playing much better, but they dug themselves such a big hole that, if they had been kind of going at a pace or even less than the pace that they had early in the season, then this is perfectly acceptable. But the Rangers have actual aspirations of making the playoffs. Like, this is one point that you're going to look back on and say, if you miss by, that 1 point, here could be a reason why. But for the Rangers, lineup changes for sure, and players returning to the lineup. So first off, Bo Grew was sent down. Never ended up playing a game. Was kind of an emergency situation, but he's been sent down because Chris Kreider's activated off of IR. So Kreider in the lineup, as well as Filip Chytil returning to the lineup, and so therefore the healthy scratches are Jimmy Vesey and Johnny Brodzinski. So those are the ones that kind of feel like they're on the outs. And that comes with a slight caveat with the fact that let's keep in mind that you do have Arthur Kaliyev in there. And I think that in a lot of ways, it's a test trial run for Kaliyev, right? So like in the long run, I don't know that he would necessarily be in the lineup over a Vesey or over a Brodzinski necessarily. But for now, Kaliyev is getting a look. As well, Matt Rempe is in the lineup too. And that's another one of those things where you just don't know. So, but it is, certainly, again, it's something that we've seen, that Vesey and Brodzinski in different ways tend to kind of be the odd guys out in a lot of the situations. And it does make sense because they are veterans. And so them being healthy scratched, it's sensible, right? You'd be more likely to do it with them than you would be, even though we've seen it before with Rempe or even Kaliyev. They're younger players, like you'd rather give them a look. But again, not going to harp too much on that. But so then what ends up happening is it's kind of the top 6 is kind of what you expected it to be, with Trocheck centering Panarin and Lafreniere, Zibanejad centering Cooley and Smith. And the third line was Hedel with Kreider and Kaliev. So kind of putting them together. And they were all right. They weren't great. I wouldn't expect it to be a line that really sticks. And then it's back to kind of what you're accustomed to with Carrick in the middle of Edstrom and Rempe. And that's a fourth line that we've seen a lot earlier in the season. And Edstrom and Carrick have really been attached to the hip, besides for last game, where they made a couple of tweaks. And the defense was the same. And I'll say, so Igor, not a good game for him. Defensively, they were good. I mean, I don't have a whole lot to complain about. There's some moments, and Ryan Lindgren certainly, messes up in a pretty big way on that tying goal. We'll talk about that more in detail once we get to that goal. But yeah, I mean, I think overall, like, they just, as a team, against, what is a tough, speedy Colorado Avalanche team, especially in that high altitude, they're not easy to go against. And I thought the Rangers certainly kept them at bay. They really did. So that's the Ranger formula. I was about to go on here and say, hey, like, the way they won this game was not too different from the Vegas game. And that's kind of how they got to do it. It would be good goaltending, solid team defense, and timely goal scoring. A big difference, though, in this game was the power play did not deliver. And that is such an important thing for the Rangers, and they just didn't get it done. So, first period, like I said, kind of a run and gun style first in the beginning. And I thought that the Rangers really, first period, Rangers played well. Second, I mean, and the Rangers were more in protect mode in the third. Do I wish that the Rangers would have a little bit more chance in the third, which they had a few? Yes, I do. I continue to say that, but the formula has worked. They have typically been able to win these games and look pretty good doing so. Not in every game, but this is an example of where it didn't work out. So they did kind of hold, it wasn't bend but don't break. They broke. But in the first period, it would be Parker Kelly scoring at .453 for the Avalanche's fifth goal of the season, assisted by Colton and Makar. And this was a play where Kreider finds Hedel. A nice play, actually, and Hedel is stopped by Blackwood. And then they go the other way. And it really starts off Igor. I forget who the original shot was from, but it was one in which Igor should have stopped it cleanly. And then eventually what happens is Kreider puts it into the corner, which was the right thing to do by Kreider. He puts it into the corner. But I felt like I needed to mention that initial shot was kind of a soft one for Igor not to hold on to. He just didn't look all that comfortable all night long. And the problem I have on this goal is the forwards, all three of them, are way too high. And that kind of happens as well in the tying goal, too. That's been a problem for the Rangers. As much as they've been better lately, that the forwards are looking for offense and cheating a bit, honestly. And they need to, at least one of them needs to stay back. And so it gives the Avalanche numbers. And Vakanainen and Schneider are the only ones back. And Vakanainen was a little out of position, possibly. And Parker Kelly, with a nice wrist shot, scores past Shesterkin. So Avalanche take the 1-0 lead when it could have been a Ranger goal. Like I said, Edstrom, Cooley, Hedel all had chances within those first 5 minutes, but Mackenzie Blackwood made the stops. So that makes it 1-0. And then the Rangers take the penalty, and it's Chris Kreider tripping Cal Makar at 11:02. And in this moment, and I'll stick with this, in this moment, it's like, well, Chris Kreider coming back may be more of a negative than a positive. And I think that that's something that is very much on the table. And to be fair to him, he just came back. He's been out a little bit. We'll be fair. Again, going back to a game in Colorado as your first game back is not easy. But yeah, a little bit frustrating because, again, he was at fault a little bit for that first goal against. And he takes a penalty here. However, it ends up working out because Sam Carrick is at it again. This guy has just been sensational lately. His fourth goal of the season, it's a short-handed goal, scored at 11:55. And it's a play where Cale Makar just loses the puck. Carrick takes it all the way, makes a nice little move, and scores past Mackenzie Blackwood. So this was an impressive goal by Carrick. Again, it's kind of funny what, like that goal versus the Devils, what it can do for confidence. And I think that he was someone that was still playing, despite his lack of offensive numbers. I felt as if you were to do like a report card, player by player, Sam Carrick, like he hasn't been bad this season. I mean, you wouldn't give him an A. You may not even give him a B necessarily, but I don't think that he is the root of issues for this team. If anything, especially now, it's been a positive. So Carrick scores that goal shorthanded, and it ties it up at 1. Rangers then get a power play. Keaton Middleton with a delay of game penalty at 14:50. Rangers don't score on this. They go 0 for 3 on the night. I want to say something on the power play. It's interesting. Kreider comes back, returns to the power play, but the second unit. So they stuck with Panarin, Fox, Trocheck, Zibanejad, and Lafreniere. And the second unit, Will Cooley gets taken off. So it was Kreider, Hedel, Kaliev, Riley Smith, and K'Andre Miller. So a little unfair to Cooley, who his play has dipped a bit lately, to be fair. Hasn't been as good as he was earlier in the season. And Cooley does have a big role on the penalty kill. It's just interesting. It's tough because you could have just not had Kreider at all, but that I guess feels like some malpractice because Kreider's bread and butter is, that net front presence on a power play. So to not use that is almost pointless. So it's tough, right? You got to have a defenseman in K'Andre Miller. You got to have Hedel, who, he doesn't kill penalties. So then it kind of becomes like, I understand the reason behind all of it. Kaliev, if he's not on the power play again, he's not going to, his ice time is going to be limited, and they want to give him a look. So then it kind of comes down to Riley Smith or Cooley, and it's kind of pick your poison because both of them kill penalties, and they've decided that I guess Kreider has more of the role of what Cooley would do, and so it was Kreider. So again, not the biggest deal in the world, but notable. Rangers don't score on that power play, and I think it was one that. I forget which one it was. If it was the first, one of them had good ozone time, good chances. It was either the first power play or the second. I can't remember, but it wasn't as if the power plays were awful. Just weren't really able to put it in the back of the net. So the score is 1-1 at the end of one. Thought the Rangers had a good period. Second period, same thoughts. A good road second period. And it would be Adam Edstrom scoring again his fourth goal of the season, assisted by Sam Carrick at 9:59. This is a play where it's a bit of a turnover again, going the other way. Kind of another self-inflicted wound, if you will, by the Avalanche, and one where a nice passing play between Carrick and Edstrom, where Carrick, I think, is the one that's able to chip it. And he's able to find Edstrom going up the middle and a mini breakaway for Edstrom. And this time he scores. And Edstrom scored last game as well. It's good to see. I think Adam Edstrom, there is a lot of potential in him as a sure shot NHL player, which I don't think you can, discount that really, because it's a guy like Adam Edstrom. It may not have been expected, right? He was a late round pick. He does have the size, right? He has some of the physical qualities that would make sense for him to be an NHL player, but it doesn't always work out. Just because you're tall does not mean that you're going to, transfer from the AHL, for example, to the NHL. But Edstrom has played every game this season. And even though the stats aren't going to jump out at you, I think there's hope for him. So again, and again, in the moment, he's been good lately, so it's easy to say that. But seriously, he's got speed, and I think this is someone that really could carve out a niche in this league. So Adam Edstrom makes it 2-1, 2 points for Sam Carrick. Carrick, however, and it feels like he hasn't done it as much lately, but he takes a penalty, right? And that is part of Sam Carrick's game. He will draw penalties, but he will certainly take them. And at 12:56, he cross-checks Logan O'Connor, but the Rangers do kill it off, and then they get a power play themselves. Ross Colton trips Adam Fox at 15:45, but the Rangers don't score. Rangers do take that 2-1 lead going into the third, though. One thing I'm going to wait. I'm going to talk about it on the Ranger power play for the 4-on-3. This is some different thoughts on individuals, but third period, I thought the Rangers played pretty well, especially the first half of the third. It just felt like, all right, they were in a good position, and there was chances to be had as well. Actually, here's why I'll bring it up. No, I'll wait again. At 13:03, Riley Smith hooks Cal McCarr. The Rangers do kill that off, though. And I think, and again, that was really, really big. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of last game where Vegas had a power play in the late stages, and the Rangers were able to get the job done PK-wise. Again, the Rangers' penalty kill has been about as consistent a part of the game as has been all season. And I want to say after that, there was a chance by Alexis Lafreniere that was not converted. Lafreniere has been frustrating. Production has not been there. The eye test has not been good. Lafreniere, after what we saw last season, for him to be doing this, very disappointing. Not to say that he can't turn it back around. We know he has it within him, but it's just been bad for Alexis Lafreniere. Do not like what I'm seeing. There have been chances that the results need to be there, but then just in general, he just doesn't look great out there. And so I'm not really asking them to switch up. I mean, look, you're going to stay with that line. That's been, a line that we've seen exclusively basically the last 2 seasons with Panarin, Trocheck, and Lafreniere. But again, Lafreniere specifically, he's been frustrating. I don't like what I've seen. And I thought in this game, Panarin wasn't very good, all things considered. But it gets down to a situation where the Avalanche pull the goalie. And the puck was in the Rangers zone for a while. And the guys out there was the Zibanejad line. So that's Mika with Cooley and Riley Smith, as well as Lindgren and Fox. And there was a moment where Ryan Lindgren had a chance with some time to clear the puck. He doesn't. Out of the zone, he does not. He risks it, and it goes to the point. Pretty easy for them to stop. That's one where, again, with a little more force, it's not as if he put it in a bad place, and I can't 100% kill him. But in that moment, it's like it felt like it was doable to get it out of the zone, and he doesn't. And eventually it ends up in the back of their net. And what was frustrating was that Zibanejad, Cooley, and Smith, to me, are way, way too far up the ice, way, way too far up in their own zone, and needed to stay back and didn't. And so it ends up being an opportunity where McKinnon shoots it wide, but it's kept in, I believe, probably by Makar. But it ends up on the stick of Rantanen. And Rantanen takes a shot, clear sight. Again, like, it's a quality chance, but it's clear sight. Igor saw it. He's unable to hang on to it, and it drops right next to him, and Lekkonen's right there to bury it next to Lindgren. So that's another thing. If you're Ryan Lindgren, close out, box him out. Don't let that happen. So disappointing with Ryan Lindgren on that goal in a couple of ways, and just in general, the forwards just not really being. I mean, look, of course you want to empty net goal, but you got to make sure that you are sound defensively. And I didn't think they were there, but Igor also deserves blame. So now we're going to overtime. And at this point, okay, that is bad. However, if the Rangers win, no harm, in terms of, if you're a fan that wants this team to make the playoffs, that's not everyone, right? That is not everyone. But if you are, then that would be a situation where it's basically no harm, no foul. You're facing a Western Conference opponent. The Rangers are already very good in the regulation win column, which is the top tiebreaker. So again, really, 2 points would be 2 points, and we wouldn't be harping on the fact that Colorado tied it up. But Rangers do get a power play, and it's Adam Fox that draws it again. Interference by Mikko Rantanen at the 45-second mark. And this is where I'm not saying that I have the definite answer, but I was curious as to what Laviolette would put out there for 4-on-3. You knew that Panarin and Fox would, no doubt about it, be two of the 4. And I guess, in the aftermath, Trocheck, I guess, would have been somewhat obvious as well, if nothing else for face-off reasons. Right, so I guess, I'm fine with Trocheck being on there, but you could debate it if you wanted to, truly, in this 4-on-3 situation. They end up choosing Kreider, who, again, like I said, he's on the second unit, so that meant no Zibanejad and no Lafreniere. Now, I've talked poorly about Lafreniere, right? I've talked poorly about Kreider, and I'm actually about to talk poorly about Zibanejad later in this overtime. But let's keep within the confines of the power play, right? Not bring other things into it. I felt like there wasn't enough real shooting threats. Yes, is Kreider as a net front presence good in that situation? Yeah. And I can't necessarily go to bat for Zibanejad and or Lafreniere all that much. I really can't. And that's why I'm not. It's just more food for thought. I'm curious what everyone else thinks on this one as far as what should have been on that 4-on-3. Again, Panarin and Fox are no-brainers. And Trocheck, I think that's fine as well. I don't have much of a problem with that. But I don't know, the threat of Zibanejad's shot, which, again, is very hit or miss, and Lafreniere as a left-handed option as well on that right side, I think could have maybe caused some problems as well. I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is Kreider out there was an interesting decision, and the Rangers don't score on that power play. And there is a stoppage after it's over, so it goes back to 3-on-3. And eventually, Mika Zibanejad gets a breakaway opportunity and does not score. And so that's the frustrating thing. Sam Carrick is able to score on a breakaway with a nice move. Mika Zibanejad is not. And at least he, got at least, because a lot of the Rangers shoot it wide. At least that was on net. But Mika, who really could have used that would have been a huge goal that maybe could have just been a springboard for him to get going. He doesn't get it. And then to make matters worse, he is one of the big culprits for the game-winning goal by Colorado. So it ends up being a situation where it's Zibanejad, Panarin, and Fox. Not exactly the crew you want in your defensive zone, but that's what it is in that moment. And Zibanejad, in a couple of instances, is just unable to gain possession of the puck, which is what you absolutely need in overtime. And it was just, I understand he might have been tired, but it was just weak efforts. Logan O'Connor just beat him flat out. Mika should have gotten the puck and gained control of it and just kind of took the easy way out. And we've seen that just too often. A really, really poor 30 seconds or so from Zibanejad behind the Ranger net. That all said, the Rangers were in okay position. Not great, because Devon Toews ends up coming on the ice. The former Islander comes on the ice, and he scores the game-winning goal in overtime, his 6th goal of the season, at 4:23 of overtime from McKinnon and O'Connor. And it's McKinnon that finds Devon Toews for a one-time slap shot that goes in I think it was 5-hole, a really bad goal by Igor. Just no excuse for it, really. Again, despite the fact that I felt like Lindgren fucked up on the tying goal, despite the fact that I felt like Zibanejad fucked up on the overtime winner, Igor, in both instances, needs to do a better job. It's not as if he was crazily tested in this game. And, it was just one where, the going from side to side, just Igor left way too much room. And maybe he felt like Toews' shot was going to be elevated, and therefore he would have had that covered. Maybe he anticipated wrong, and it wasn't so much a positional fuck up. But yeah, not good by Shesterkin, and that gives Colorado the 3-2 in an overtime, and a frustrating loss for sure. These Rangers Avalanche games have been very close for the last few years, where almost every time the Rangers have been the ones that have won most of them. But really, when you think about the last 3-4 seasons, like, these games typically go past 60 minutes, and that was the case again, and the Rangers only get the 1 point. So again, they've been a lot better lately, but they dug themselves a huge hole, and it's going to be tough for them to get out of it. So now next is finishing up the road trip at Utah. Utah and the Rangers actually are in the same spot in terms of point. They're both 500. They both have a 500 points percentage. However, it's a difference in terms of Utah has not been playing well lately. They're, I think, 10-7 and 2-7-1 in the last 10 games, and they have the worst. They're really bad at home. They've lost home games lately. So, very winnable game for the Rangers to go into Utah and win that game. Utah beat the Rangers as well earlier in the year. The Rangers home opener where Utah won in overtime. So Rangers may want a little bit of payback there. And that was, a game that they played pretty poorly, if I remember correctly, giving up a lot of chances. But we'll see what happens. I would suspect that Shesterkin will likely be in net. You never know. I guess it could be quick, but I think it'll probably be Igor. But what's important about this game against Utah is, to me, it's going to set a tone one way or another, because after that, the Rangers play game after game after game against teams that they are competing against for those final 2 wild card spots. So, you beat Utah, and you can feel good about yourself going home with a really important part of the schedule coming up, or you can lose it. Now, all of a sudden, you lost 2 in a row, and, it feels as if kind of things are going in the wrong direction. So, going to be interesting to see what happens. Again, a tough loss to the Rangers. They get 1 point, but the elusive second point they can't get as they cough up the lead late in the third period, only to see the Avalanche win it in overtime. It's a 3-2 final in Colorado, and now the Rangers will conclude their road trip with a game against Utah.